Hello, and welcome to the Innovative Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Isolde Trachtenberg, in my car studio. Yes, construction is still going on. It continues apace, and yet that means that my apartment shakes regularly. So I go out into the car, and this is where I record my individual episodes. Okay, so what am I talking about today? Today is a Mindfulness Friday episode, and what I'm talking about today is something that probably a lot of us are going through, and I don't know how often we're talking about it. You know, on the subway, I see these, are you feeling stressed? Are you feeling alone? Are you feeling upset? Are you feeling depressed? Contact us and we will help you. There's suicide hotlines. There's all sorts of stuff on the subway because these advertisements are here because so many of us are wandering around still shell-shocked from a year and a half in quarantine, and we might be locking back down, and there's been no time to process. It's just sort of started opening back up, and all of a sudden we were back in the swing of things without having made significant changes in how we were doing the things we were doing. And so we're finding ourselves back in this place of potentially being in lockdown again because of the Omicron variant. And one of the things that I really noticed as we were going through all of this stuff was that we had not made significant enough changes in how we were doing what we were doing to address this whole thing, the virus and everything. I mean, there are so many people who don't even want to get vaccinated, and so we're back in this hole, if you will. We never really dug ourselves out, let's call it what it is, but we're really back in it. We're back in the soup and trying to figure out how we're going to deal with it. So a lot of people have been feeling stressed and sad and upset and maybe even sick if you've gotten the virus, which I hope that it's a mild case for you if you have. And on top of that, of course, we have the holiday season has just been upon us, and so yay for some of us. The holiday season is fabulous. It's an amazing thing, and for others of us it is bad. So a lot of us are facing a certain amount of heartache, and on Mindful Fridays I'm going through that mindful creative deck that I developed, that I designed, and I'm choosing a card, and I happen to choose Heartache today. And Heartache, the card is, it has a background of the night sky, beautiful background of the night sky, with a heart and three swords sort of intersecting through it / behind it. And it's about sort of dealing with heartache. It's not so much about, oh, woe is me, because that's a different thing, right? When you're in the soup and you're feeling sad, you have to acknowledge it. You have to be aware that you're feeling sad. And there's only so long you can push through the sorrow and the heartache before something's got to give, right? We, as I said, I think many of us the world over are feeling that bone deep sorrow, that heartache that we're not really dealing with. Why? Because we have to keep going. We have to do things. We have to pay the bills. We have to put food on the table. All of those things still have to be happening. And there's this patina, there's this shroud of uncertainty that is going through all of us right now. We are all in, as I said, we're all in this soup trying to figure out how to handle everything that's being thrown at us. And I live in the developed world, right? I live in New York City, arguably the best city in the world. So living here, I don't see a lot of the tragedy and horror that so many parts of the world have been going through for decades, for eons, and are still going through today, right? I'm very privileged and I'm very lucky. And if you are in a part of the world that is war-torn or is having massive water shortages or other resources that are just gone, I feel for you. And if there was something I could do, I would be doing it. I acknowledge that I am privileged on this. And I acknowledge that sometimes sorrow is a perspective that really the developed world can have, because we have the luxury of time and resources to acknowledge it. It's a weird concept, isn't it? But I think it's really true. I think there are probably people who are going through unspeakable trauma right now, but they are so busy trying to survive in war-torn countries or countries that have no resources at all, that they don't have a way of doing it, right? Think about that there are people in this world who have no way of providing for their families. They don't have access to clean drinking water. They don't have access to bathrooms and sanitation, right? So when I talk about sorrow, they don't have time to be sad. They have to survive. And sorrow is, in some ways, an honor. If you have the resources, the time, and the luxury to have sorrow, then you are luckier than most. I know that sounds bizarre, but I really believe that that's true, that so many of us are in a position to be sad that we don't have an understanding that there are lots of people out there who don't have the ability to even put food on the table or have a glass of water that is clean, that won't give them some sort of a bug that could potentially end their life. So we are in some ways living in very different worlds. The developed world versus the developing world or the undeveloped world, different worlds altogether. And we need to think about that as part of acknowledging our sort of collective heartache that some of us, this is a terrible thing to say, but I'm going to just say it. You know, there's this old trope that the parent would say, "You're crying? Well, I'm going to give you something to cry about." But on some level, in a weird sort of abusive way, I admit, it's kind of true. It's like, on some level, we have this, I'm sad thing, but we have enough resources to put food on the table and to have clean drinking water. So wow, are we lucky to be alive, right? That's something for us to think about as we live this life, that we have the opportunity to be incredibly grateful for so much, for the fact that we get to live, the fact that we get to be here, the fact that we have clean drinking water. So I know that I sound like I'm a broken record, but also a preachy broken record, and I apologize for that, except for that I don't really. Honestly, this is something for us to really put our thinking caps on around, is that heartache it's an emotion. It's something that we can feel and we can acknowledge and we can work through with the help of mental health professionals or maybe our friends, whatever that is. And on some level, we also have the luxury of having the heartache, right? You're alive. I'm alive. My friend Petra died a few weeks ago, and honestly, I still haven't processed it. I still haven't because I haven't had time. I've been busy working in gig season and haven't had time to really think about it. And which is weird, but we can compartmentalize, right? It's kind of like when her family asked me to MC her memorial service, and I had to compartmentalize whatever sorrow and heartache I had to be compartmentalized so that I could be there for the people who were going to be in the audience, in the sort of congregation, and her parents. I had to be there for her parents, and my heartache, my sorrow had to go away until I could feel it. And I'm about to start. I have a feeling I'm about to start really dealing with the sorrow and the heartache I feel about her death, and haven't figured it out yet, but I'm working on it. So it's a weird one. It's a mind bender, truly, that when we have heartache, it sometimes waits until we can afford the time and the energy and the resources to really deal with it. And that's what I think is something that mindfulness helps us with. I know this is a long and circuitous route to get here, but mindfulness lets you feel what you're feeling when you're feeling it, even if sometimes the resources that you have to dedicate to those feelings are few and far between. Acknowledging that it's there is really important, right? We can acknowledge that it's there. We can acknowledge that we have these issues, and we don't necessarily end up having to have them be part of our everyday. We might compartmentalize them and feel them when we can, rather than waiting, or rather than stopping. Sorry, there's a FedEx truck. Remember, this is an outdoor episode, I'm in my car because there's construction going on. So anyway, the point is we might not be able to feel it right then, or if we are mindful, we might be able to give it the worth that it's due, but not let it debilitate us, right? So if you feel your feelings as they happen, it might not completely wear you down. And that's my hope for you, by the way, that you get to feel your feelings without the trauma of debilitation. Okay, that's it. Today's episode has been a navel-gazing-y, and I hope that you got something out of it. It is mindful to feel your feelings. It's also sometimes a good thing to be mindful of the fact that you can't. In the moment, you cannot feel your feelings. You have to think about things differently and compartmentalize so that you can be there for yourself and take care of yourself and your family and do those things first before you do anything else. All right, this is Isolde Trachtenberg for the Innovative Mindset Podcast, reminding you that innovation, ethical innovation, is when creativity finds a problem to solve. Until next time, be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind.